Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I can see that we have some attendees joining here, so I'm going to just take a minute to make sure everyone can enter the webinar. Welcome to BHCOE's monthly business development series, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day for joining us for today's webinar, which is about optimizing digital ABA clinical workflows. My name is Sarah Litvak. I'm the CEO here at Behavioral Health Center of Excellence, and I'll be hosting today's webinar. For those of you who haven't attended one of our monthly webinars, welcome. And for those of you who have, welcome back. We're always very happy to see our accredited providers who continue to come back and give us suggestions about the topics that are important to them. And we hope that these webinars have been a useful resource for you. Christine Ratcliffe is the one who curates most of our content. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put her contact information in the chat box here. And if you have any ideas for webinar topics that you would like to see or any questions that you have, please feel free to email her directly and give her suggestions. We would be happy to provide any webinars that you think are of interest. The goal of this series is to help you as a business owner, director, supervisor to access relevant information that can help you run your business more effectively and more efficiently. So we want to make sure that you have an eye for ensuring continuous improvement. So today's webinar topic is very timely as we've received a lot of questions about efficiencies in clinical practice. So it's something that we believe is a really important thing to continue monitoring within your organization, and also a great way to make sure that you maintain compliance with the accreditation standards of making sure that your session notes are up to date and things like that. So I'm so excited to discuss this further. A few things about us if you're not familiar with BHCOE accreditation yet. We are an accrediting body that's specific to ABA organizations. And what I'd like to direct you to is we do have a directory on our website, and you can go ahead and see the providers in your area that are accredited. And accreditation is really important because it's an oversight component that allows organizations to be held accountable to a set of standards in our industry instead of the individual practitioner that the BACB oversees. So this is more and more important, especially as ABA organizations aren't necessarily owned by clinical folks, and it also allows organizations to benchmark themselves for things like patient outcome, turnover, staff satisfaction, patient satisfaction. We take a lot of work in the pride in the work we do, and I, with our board and subject matter experts, work to create a code that helps organizations impact their consumers. So our organization was created by behavior analysts and for behavior analysts to ensure that regulation comes from within our field and that we stay unified in what it means to provide quality services. If you're interested in learning more about our accreditation process, feel free to reach out to one of our outreach coordinators. And I'm putting their contact information in the chat box as well, and you can fill out a submission form to get contacted by them directly. Another thing is that I want to direct all of you to this compliance concern page as well, and I'm going to put a link in the chat. What's important is that about accreditation is that it also holds organizations to the code. So just because someone is evaluated, they also have to maintain access to that code and make sure that they're in compliance as well. So in the chat box, I'm going to put that compliance concern link in there. If you ever have any concerns about an organization who's accredited, please reach out to them directly. But if for some reason you're not able to directly mediate that issue with them, please fill out a compliance concern form, and we will contact them and help mediate that issue as well. A few things about the webinar, just so you're aware. The webinar will be recorded, and we will send that to anyone who has registered for the webinar. So another thing to note is that if you're registered for the webinar, it does integrate with our mailing list. So you will continue to get emails about upcoming webinars and additional information about BHCOE. If you just wanted this one webinar, just unsubscribe. We won't take it personally. But if you're interested in some of the future work that we're doing, announcements, updates to the code, our white papers, and things like that, you'll be added to that list and you can get updates there. You can also find all of our webinars at this link, which is the Virtual Academy. On our website, you'll be able to access any of the webinars that we've done previously. And typically we put them up within about a week of the webinar that happens. A few just additional housekeeping items is that there will be a chat box for questions that will go to our moderator, so myself, and to Greg, our presenter. If you'd like any questions answered, you can use the private chat box or the public one, and we'll be able to monitor those questions. If you use the private question Q&A box, I'll be able to mark them as responded. If you use the public one, just make sure that you're able to clearly identify what that question is. If you're interested in getting one CEU, you should have provided your CEU number at registration. If for some reason you didn't, not to worry, you'll be sent a survey at the end of the webinar that will have a spot to add your number. When you add that, please remember to add your first and last name and email address. We're not able to send you your CE certificate if you didn't include your CE number, your first, last name, and your email address. But hopefully if you did that at registration, we already have that information. So as you're getting settled in, it looks like we have just a few more folks joining us, trickling in. You will all be muted except our presenter. I mentioned that you can send questions through. And I think if everyone has their lattes and lunches, I think we'll be able to begin the webinar. So before I do that, I want to introduce Gregory Paquette. Gregory has been working in the field of behavior analysis since 2005. He received his master's degree in ABA and was board certified in 2008. He started his work in the field at the renowned New England Center for Children outside Boston, where he served a variety of roles working with children and adults with related disabilities reach their full potential. And after leaving the center, Greg worked as a BCBA conducting school and home consultation in both Massachusetts and Florida. He also oversaw ABA services in the Southeast United States and later opened an early intervention service division for a large agency in Western Massachusetts. His passion is evident, and you'll see that in the presentation that we're doing. Since starting at CentralReach almost 4 years ago, Greg has worked across departments helping clinical users onboard, implement, and roll out their workflows agency-wide, and his current focus is working as a strategist for enterprise clients who are improving their workflows electronically and working to scope new clinical products to help agencies streamline their processes. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the reins over to Greg here, and he will get us started.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Sounds great to me.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, guys. Well, let me just get my little screen sharing going, and then I'll give just another quick intro, and then we'll get started here. All right. And if you can just confirm that you can see my screen.
Looks great.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Cool, guys. So just a little bit, right? I actually see some great old friends in the crowd, some from New England Center for Children and some agencies and individuals that I work with currently, which is great. And then a lot of names that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet. So excited to be here, excited to talk today. My job in a nutshell is like Sarah mentioned, I do work for CentralReach, been there for a very long time. And even before I worked for CentralReach, I utilized CentralReach in the field. This webinar is not all about CentralReach. It's going to be about just electronic systems in general, but I have to use, of course, some examples. I do have a login to CR, so I'll show some cool examples in there. Really what I like to do, I get to talk to users every day, clinical users that utilize our software and that are thinking about a software, right? So I get to talk to people that are exploring, should I go electronic, should I not? I get to talk to them about their workflows, how they teach, what they do, how they collect data, and then work with them throughout training, and then after training, even when they're fluent in the system, to try to improve their workflows. So from onboarding to training to the aftermath, and the ongoing life cycle. So it's definitely a fun gig. Miss the field, out there working with the families a little bit, but definitely excited to do my role now. at CentralReach, I'm here on behalf of the CR Institute. It's just a centralized hub of content and courses. We do have over 20 BCBAs that are on staff now, and we're always adding new content. So afterwards, I'll post a little link to our CR Institutes. You can check out any of our courses, our CEUs, etc. And it's a great little item there that we can go over at the end. In terms of the flow, right? So just really quickly, some administrative items. We love questions, right? Sarah and I will look at the chat throughout. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions, make comments, and contribute your knowledge. In a few minutes, we will do a poll to figure out if the crowd here today, if you're pros at the electronic stuff, right? I say stuff because there's a lot to it, and you've been on the cloud for years, or others, right? If you might not know what a cloud is and are just starting your journey, and I don't mean any disrespect by that, I am the least tech savvy person that you'll ever meet. So if I can control this webinar and I can teach people how to use an electronic platform, it should be that easy, okay? But ask questions, contribute knowledge. If you're on a platform and it's worked well and the onboarding has worked well, exchange emails, right? Talk to one another. Everything's fine in that regard, okay? We'll do our best to stop and address after every slide or two. I'm going to go back and forth between slides, PowerPoint, and then examples in an electronic platform. Okay, so we'll stop and we'll take questions, as we go. Okay, now I'm on the agenda page, right? And I'm going to go over our overview here. I want to stop for a sec, and I just want to ask Sarah if you could potentially post the poll just to get a sense of our user base. Okay, perfect. I see it pop up on one of my screens. So everyone should have a poll pop up, digital systems and you, and really just what situation are you in, right? So take a second and just answer that for me, and it will help shape my presentation. Okay, I don't want to waste anyone's time talking about some stuff you already know. Okay, all right. And Sarah, are the responses coming in for you?
Yeah, looks like we're at about 77% response rate, and we have 21% of respondents said that they're not using a digital system or software. Or 20%, and then 55% are on a digital system and satisfied with its capabilities, and 24% are on a digital system and dissatisfied with its capabilities. The good thing is not one person said that they're not interested in a digital solution, so everyone who's here is making sure that they're interested in that. So I'm going to end the poll, and hopefully those results will be public.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, that's great. That's great information to have. All right, cool. And I do see the results. Okay. So awesome. Right. And that will help us. Okay. And Sarah, just confirm you can still see my, my screen there.
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome, guys. All right. So let's jump in. Okay. The overview today, right? So the why and the what, since 25% or so are not on a system, we are going to spend some time here, right? Why go digital, right? And what can you move to the cloud, right? That crazy cloud, what can you get on there? The second thing is, how do you get there, right? So even this might be helpful, even if you already are on a platform, right? We want to get your stuff electronic, right? Your stuff. We don't have to change your methodology. So we're going to go a little bit of into that topic. And if you're just happy, everything went smooth when you went on a platform, great, zone out, check some emails for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back for the focus, right? The online documentation and that online reporting, okay? Our main things that we're gonna go over are this time saving, right? How to save time, streamlining processes, right? Getting your clients set up your way, I emphasize your way, right? And pulling great, fast reports. Now, I do wanna highlight one of those bullets, right? That third bullet near the bottom. Getting your clients set up your way, but also the right way. For those on a platform and those exploring, This is huge, and I recommend do not rush this step. We all want great reports, which is kind of probably why, people are on here and interested, but it all starts with great setup, right? So we want to review how to set up. And that's frustration I hear as well for people that are starting an implementation on a platform, for people that are just going through it and it takes months and months. Sometimes when I talk to people, they're like, oh, I'm on month 11 and I'm not using it yet, right? That's bad. Okay. And we will work to hopefully, teach you how to change that. Okay. So, all right. So some common scenarios. All right. So let's get into that broad topic of the why go paperless, right? And then the what. What do I put in the cloud? Being an ABA practitioner myself, I have some common scenarios that will help highlight the need. And I'm sure all of you have had these situations come up from time to time, right? So the first one on here, right? If you're not electronic, or the reason you switched to an electronic system is report time, right? So let's a scenario that happens a lot, right? So you have a binder, it's in the home, right? It's far away. You haven't been out there enough because you have too many people on your caseload. You don't have enough data, right? So it's 2 weeks before that reauth. You go out there finally and you're like, wow, my techs are great, but they didn't do this, this, this. It seems like they're only running those easy programs, right? Seems like they're doing maintenance all day long, which is important, right? But you're scrambling to get enough data, right? Then insurance, right? In the back of your mind, they want that first week of data from the auth period, maybe. They want the last week of data from the auth period. Maybe they want 2 weeks average for behavior data, right? These are common things that a lot of my users that I talk to will talk about, right? They need all that, right? That's really hard, and it takes a lot of summing if you don't have it electronically, right? The second scenario, discharges, resignations, right? So let's face it, there's good reasons that a family will leave, and then there's frustrating reasons, right? And they might be angry. They might not like the staff. They might not like you. They might not like services, right? But good luck getting that binder and the paper when they just leave, right? All those papers, they disappear, right? Good luck getting that. And then the staff leaves, right? Let's just say if that staff is terminated, again, I wish you even more luck getting that. And of course, in some states, you can kind of withhold a paycheck. You can make them do it, make them sign this and that. But let's face it, if you're terminating them, maybe they've already lost some stuff and maybe they're not doing that data to begin with, right? So that's something that's frustrating, okay, if you're not electronic. And then that A word, right? That big, scary A word. An auditor, right, will write to you. They'll call you, whatever. It's been a while since that happened to me, but they'll say, hey, I need little Johnny's data and I need little Michael's data. I need it on June 5th, June 10th, and June 17th, right? What do they mean by data? Well, everything, right? They want the actual data. They want signatures, staff and parents. They want the notes, right? The narrative from the day. They want the code information. They want who worked, right? All that stuff. So that's a scary word, but why not have everything in one place all together and print out a nice little statement with everything you need packaged up nicely? So that's a situation that can be easier when you're electronic, okay? And then we'll summarize and I'll take any questions. Some of this might be things that right? But we all have a hunch why we need to go electronic, right? And lots of us already have. The more official reasons backed by the evidence of the previous scenarios are, right, first HIPAA, right? So you want to store your confidential information without risk, right? That should be the biggest. And then next up, right, those insurance hoops. They need a lot. They need it often, right? They need it quickly. They need it in an organized format. Less hunting down is basically time saving, money saving, right? So that's a big one for the why. And then finally, we should never, ever, ever forget the clinical side of things. So many times these days, we're just governed by what a payer, what a funder needs, right? But the clinical analysis is also why you should go paperless, right? 24/7 analysis. No more waiting for a supervision that's 9 days from now, right? To see if little Bobby is stuck on an eye contact program, right? You should be able to log in, see how he's doing, and make changes to that program and other programs, all while sipping your coffee. Now, or while you're listening to me, you're checking those things online. If you already have a platform, that's cool. No offense. And you can just, go in there. So 24/7 analysis. All right. So those are the whys. Most of you already know those. And then I would hope if you're on a platform, your platform can help you store just about everything. So that's the what. You want to, house files. You want to house binders, worksheets, videos, authorizations, policy documents, etc. You should have unlimited, easy access and, easy storage options. Okay. So that's a little bit about that how and that why. Okay. Any questions? We can just stop for just, a second, see if there's any questions on that stuff. Pretty self-explanatory. I just like to give that background. The next part of our agenda, right? So phase 2, right? So how do you make it happen? Okay. So you know why, you know what. How do you make it happen? So this slide kind of outlines a little bit. For those of you on a platform, which, 55%, right? Well, actually more. Some are not satisfied, some are satisfied, right? But great work. You picked one. Yay. You did it, right? I'd love for you all to share some thoughts on the chat if something worked for you, of how you picked one and then you proceeded, or how you got to pick one, right? But I'll lay out a few things that we feel, right? We, myself, my colleagues, folks that talk to a lot of groups day in and day out, different size groups. And on that note, who we talk to is sole proprietors up to agencies of 5,000 staff. Okay. So we have agencies that are that 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 users that are across states. And then we work as hard, for the agencies that are one user. Okay. So each agency has unique needs, which we'll talk about now. Right. So that's the first one, right? Define your unique needs. People need a software for different reasons. Not all agencies face the same challenges, state requirements. They don't have the same needs. They also don't have the same goals, right? So you need to write down those needs, write down those goals, and keep yourself accountable. And you also need to define your timelines, right? So do you need something up and running in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months? If it's immediate, do you have the bandwidth to make it happen? Right. So these are things to consider. Some people come to us particularly, and they say, hey, I just got audited. I need a software now. Right. Well, okay. But we try to be truthful. Right. And that's something that you should actually ask a software when you're looking, when you're exploring is, give me the honest truth. Right. If I sign today, when will I be using that software? Right. And they should give you an answer, but they also should talk to you and ask some questions about what your goals are and what your needs are, right? If one agency just needs to collect timesheets and then another agency needs timesheets and claims and clinical stuff, right? And they need to have quality assurance measures figured out and they need session notes with a report review process. Those are different timelines, right? So don't take a simple answer like, oh yeah, you'll be ready June 1st, right? Well, you didn't ask me what my goals are, right? That kind of stuff, okay? So your goals are set, your timeline's set, right? You know that stuff when you're considering, right? The next step is pick that project manager. When people ask me the most important part, right? I'm talking about the sales process now, right? People that have not selected a software and they're exploring, you need a project manager internally. People ask me, what's the most important part for a successful onboarding? And I say a project manager. It's not someone that is the busiest person. It's not the all-knowing person, right? It's not the CEO. It's not the clinical director, right? It's not the COO, right? At least not with also juggling their other duties. Pick someone that's organized. They can make some company decisions, right? They have that authority a little bit, and they have knowledge of workflows, okay? Without someone owning it, right? What I mean is learning, scheduling, corralling the crew, scheduling internal in-service meetings, making materials, TAs, right? There's a lot to it. And if you need help with that, I can actually break it down based on your goals and your priorities, how many hours, right, someone is going to need to do per week to get up and running, right? That's why you have to think about your needs and your priorities, right? So you had your goals, you have your manager, so now you pick your projects, right? So goals are not the same as priorities, right? You might have 500 goals, but what are your top pain points and your top priorities? You cannot do everything at once, and that's why some people have trouble. And we should really, really work to find out those pain points, right? What do you need today and what do you need in 6 months, right? On an electronic system, you know, I'll speak from experience with CentralReach, there's a heck of a lot of modules, right? Just because you have some crazy dashboard that you can look at 6 months from now, right, doesn't mean you need to do it now. You need to kind of do the basics, okay? So just like in teaching, we introduce things systematically, right? And that's what you should do in your search and in your priority list. Taking on too much is hard, right? There's specific reasons to go electronic. Don't lose track of why you did it, okay? Line up those priorities in order so you can cross them off your list. And remember, throw in some small little wins along with your bigger pain points you wish to solve. The big ones take longer. It's nice to have some reinforcement along the way. Okay. So lastly, right, once you have your goals, your project manager, your priorities, choose a software. Okay. There's a lot out there, and this next slide will highlight just that. Okay. So today we are going to talk a little bit about CentralReach. Like I said, I happen to have a login, right? But there's a lot out there. So this is in no way trying to, talk only about ours, right? So software advice, if you haven't experienced this, this is really cool. Software advice, just go, Google it or just go softwareadvice.com, right? Or Capterra. These are things that you can actually search for softwares from, like, obviously my examples are electronic medical records or EHR sometimes, medical health, practice management. Look, and I just did this search the other day. Practice management softwares, now granted, they're not all ABA, right? But 358, right? And you're supposed to pick just one, okay? Make sure yours is right? How do we do that? We go back to your goals. We go back to your priorities, right? I said write them down and check off, right? Or rather cross off softwares that don't accomplish your needs, right? If you need to do faxing from the software, right? Look for that. And if they don't do it, cross it off. It might be great, but you need faxing, right? If, you can't do certain graphing, cross it off, right? You need that. Don't make exceptions, okay? So definitely check that out. That's a cool website. All right. All right, cool. So the exciting part, right? We did the hows, the what's, taught the one, right? So let's talk clinical. What do you need, right? You should have a platform where you can store all your files and all your documents. You also need to have an easy to use client record, which includes all your students, right? All your clients' programs, their data, their history, their graphs. Okay, we're ABA, right? All of us here, most likely, some related disciplines, but you're going to need your data and your graphs, right? So these are what you need on a platform. Okay. This is an example from the CentralReach system. This is an online binder. It's just a little picture here. We're going to dive in and we're going to look at it in a second. But what you can see is, if you ask yourself, right, I want to see, where do I see all my clients' clinical information and all their goals, right? You should have an easy answer, right? In my example here on the screen, it's an online binder. Platforms call it a logbook. Platforms call it a data book. Different things, right? So in essence, it's just, think of that real life binder for the 22% of you that are not using a system. It's that binder that's in the home, okay? So this is a snapshot of what an online book binder can look like. This binder is customizable to meet each agency's needs, each supervisor's needs. You can see it has folders for all sorts of client paperwork, as well as folders for their goals in specific domains. I happen to have communication, community, adaptive. It's all flexible. Okay. Some users choose to add other items into their online binders, such as logs, right? You see like program change history, communication logs, prescription sheets, right? Think of what you have and then make it in the system and, ask for help if you need it. Okay. One thing that I really like from some agencies that I work with in training is they come to me and I say, what do you want your binder to look like? They say, well, everyone's a little scattered, but we want consistency, right? Why do we want consistency? Because you could teach a great behavior analyst to make a great binder in whatever tool you choose, right? But then you have to train other people. They might not be as great electronically, right? They might be great behavior analysts, but not great electronically. So you need to have consistency so that you can give them a shell, right? And let them do, the goals will be different, but the shell will be the same, okay? Some people tell me, hey, I have a table of contents in my paper binder. Like when a new person comes in, you're supposed to like create this and this and this. That's great. Give us your table of contents. Give your software your table of contents and say, make my binder look like this, right? That's something to think about. Okay.
Greg,
yeah.
one question that's coming in. Is the supervisor view or is this the view that all staff will see?
Awesome. So in our system, this happens to be in that last actually, I switched slides, so let me go. Well, this is fine because this is just an expanded view of that. But basically, this is typically a supervisor view. If you're if you just want to view stuff, you want to edit stuff, this is by no means like a data collection view for the direct staff. So yes, it's more of a supervisor view. But that said, every software out there has permissions, right? So like just because this is a supervisor view where I can see, hey, 39 goals in progress right there in the middle, the last goal mastered. Like if you want your text to see that, you should be able to allow them to see it. So it's all just about permission and sharing, okay? But great question, great question. Sometimes like what I hear is that some agencies don't love to give kind of the whole book and the binder to the text. They just like to give the data sheet. And I get it, right? I get it, but I also see it the other way, right? So if your paper, right, for those 22% of you that are out there on this call that are paper pencil, they don't only usually see the data sheet, right? So they also see the programs, right? They see a communication log. They get that binder. And when you go into a school, you have that binder, right? So I think it's okay with just rules, right? So on paper, there's rules. The text might not write programs, right? But electronically, there's rules too. The text might not write programs. So it's all permission. Good stuff. All right, so we are going to switch gears and we're going to go to, I'm not going to use Barry today. We're going to use Pedro. Pedro Martinez, one of my favorite old, Red Sox players, spring training, yay. All right, so let's do it. I'm going to do a new share and we're going to go over something real quick. We're going to take a peek at a binder in CentralReach today. Okay, we're going to do a 5-minute sample. And let's just make sure. Sarah, could you help me out and just confirm you see the CentralReach screen?
Yeah, I can see the URL centralreach.com/bundles. Is that the right screen?
Yeah, Pedro's ABA binder.
Yep, that's right.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah. All right, cool guys. So this is a binder, right? Supervisor view, right? But we talked about that. I just want to show you how to click around, okay? So you see over here your binder and you can dive in. So if I click this, right, I have a spot for my IEP, a spot for assessments, right? And there's nothing here, right? No file has been uploaded, but I just like to demonstrate that, again, right, going back to some of my previous, comments, you should have a spot to house some clinical documents, right? I like this one. So people always come to me, they say, we have a lot of paper. We have a we have a form for everything. I can't possibly get it in the CentralReach system or in any system, right? So this is a program change log. When I was in the field, I used to just have something in the start of my binder. When I went out for a supervision, I would just kind of put some notes, right? If I have a new toileting procedure, I'd come in, whatever day it is, 320, 19, maybe it's the 19th, who knows. GP, right? Start new toileting program. Any notes? Read the program, smiley face, right? I'm all about smiley faces, right? So there we go, right? That updated, right? As you saw me typing, it updated. So that's just a way to get a piece of paper, right? It's just a table that I put in. That's all it is, right? Same thing with prescription sheets, just to give you another example, right? I feel that you can ditch these going electronic because like you're already going to know that the data is taken Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, so you don't really need to go in and check it off. But that's just another thing that you can edit and check it off, just showing some samples. Okay, a couple
Greg,
more.
Greg,
Yep.
one more question coming in.
Yep.
Can you share more about the comments feature on CentralReach? So the comments that show up in the graphs when notes are pulled. I think you had an example on the previous slide, and
Yeah.
the question was like, how do you kind of understand if a BT is mandating for support? Like, can someone come supervise me?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, yes, they're asking for some help. The comments show up. Yeah, so basically what happens, guys, is so let's take this one for example. Okay, so behavior reduction. In this kids program, we have frequency of tantrums per shift. Okay, so I just added some data, a few pieces, a few items here, right? So 3 data points. This again is a supervisor view. They'd have a streamlined view to enter data really quickly. But there's a couple things on the comments, right? So I, as the supervisor, can write to them and then they see it in the field, or them in the field, they can write me a comment. But here's how it works, right? Hey, I changed the operational definition. Hopefully you can see me typing on the bottom and the screen's not blocking it. Please read, right? So I just put a comment in, okay? Now, hey, I changed the operational definition. That little checkbox, right, that says I can mark it as seen. The staff member would mark it as seen. But what you see is that number one comment, right? If I do another one, hey, right? There's 2, right? That is helpful because when I come in, I can see there's 2 comments. When they come in, they can see there's 2 comments. But have no fear, they're not on the graph. They're not on the graph, and they're not on any record that you would show. So even that hey, it's not going anywhere. It's only here to look. Like you can actually have a parent. You can have a parent, not see the comments. You definitely don't include those in a report unless you want to. Even when you export from here, they're not going to show the comments. Okay, and you can also disable comments. All right. So a question here: can you resolve the comment and does not show 100%? 100%. Yep. Yep. So I could resolve those. Right. Boom. Boom, and they're gone, but the history's there. But remember, again, if I download an image, it's not going to be, well, that went to my other screen, but there we go. Right, there's no comments. Okay, great questions, and we'll talk more about that if other folks want to ask about. One more thing on this example. Okay, just want to show the organization, right? So communication. A great system here. You have a cumulative count graph, which is really cool. So it shows me that 3 things in communication were mastered that week. 1 thing was mastered that week, right? I can dive deeper to see a little more, right? Just in labeling, right? Tacting alone, right? I'm hovering, labeling items. 2 were mastered last week. 1 was mastered this week, right? And so really cool stuff. And you just kind of get these by default. And of course, you always get all your stimuli graphs as well. Okay, so here's just another sample. And we're going to go into this a little bit about auto updates, which is nice. So what I have here is I had a baseline phase I scored very low, right, a 0. And what it did, you wouldn't know this, but I'll just kind of explain what happened. It auto progressed, right, because of a low score. I told the system, hey, if you get a low score once of a 0 or twice of a 0, in this case it was once, bounce to intervention, right? And then when I get a certain average of scores here, bounce to generalization, okay? So that's some auto progression that kind of made the graph itself, okay? But the item that I want to show you real quick is your instructions. So we're all about individualizing, right? And we're going to write a program together in a few minutes, and I'll give a couple examples. But for this labeling items program, I have my instructions right here, okay? And you have the ability, and you should have, in whatever program you're looking for and looking at, is to kind of customize your own teaching instructions, right? So this is just something that I put together really quickly. And again, we'll do it together in a minute. I want to write the SD here. I want to write my prompting, my operational definition, right? Some of you might not need all these things or want all these things, or some of you might want way more information. You should be able to do that in your platform, okay? So we're going to go over that again in just a few minutes, okay? But real quick, let's go back to the slideshow for just a sec, my main screen, talk a little bit, and then we're going to do a second example, okay? So that was just to highlight the binder really quickly, okay? So there is a cool quote out there. So if you're reading this, it's all about kind of individualizing, right? This slide, but there's a great quote out there. I'll butcher the name, but Ignacio Estrada, he quoted, "If a child can't learn the way we teach, then maybe we should teach the way they learn," right? I don't think anyone here would disagree that a teaching program should be individualized, right? We all do some similar skill-based assessments, right? We all have some programs that are favorites that have worked across the years, but at the end of the day, we modify programming to each individual, okay? That means that a software should not make you do it this way. It should not make you do it that way. You should be able to write the programs and run the programs the way your clients need. Okay.
A couple of questions, Greg. Can you upload a file to the learning tree to be part of the client's binder if it's just a PDF version of something, or do you have to create all the content within a CR?
100% upload.
Okay, great. And can you show a little bit more about instructional notes and how they show up when a tech is kind of looking for things?
Sure. Let's do it. Yep.
And hopefully we're not leading you to astray.
No, so we'll tackle that right now. That's fine. So before I do that, I am going to bounce, and I'll do that just next. Was there one other one, or are we good?
We do have one other question, which is how does the BT or the supervisor know they've received a comment? Like, does it tag them in it, or how do they kind of know that's there, or do they have to just manually review the record?
You bet. So right now, the supervisor has to review the binder. The techs, when they log in, we just released a new version of the application, and of course on the online, they log in and they can, so there's two things. The tech can log in online, the data sheet, and they can go to the session history, and it shows them all the comments in a log the day before. Any questions that we can go over. And in the application, they have one comment bubble that would say, you have 3 new ones. So when they log on to the data sheet, they are going to see them. It's not as automatic as it could be. One really great thing, just to look forward to is later, probably Q3-ish, we're going to have kind of some new views, and we're going to basically make it very easy. So you land on your view and see all sorts of cool metrics that you need. Any new comments for that kid, any changes, what programs you need to run, all sorts of stuff. Okay. So we'll answer more of those as we go. I got to plug along for just a few, but we'll come back. But basically just keep track of these question marks right here, right? You want to be able to individualize, and that's what we'll do right now. Okay. So let's go individualize. All right. And hopefully we can check all these things off our list. All right. So back to the screen, back to Pedro's binder, a quick example here. We're going back to labeling items, okay? So let's take a peek at labeling truck. Okay, so this right here is the graph, right? But I want to show you something cool because we're going to get to those reports in a few minutes. You want everything in here to be able to pull to reports, right? And then, well, not everything, right? But you want to be able to customize, and you want to be able to pull some baseline information, some mastery information to reports. So first I want to show you a cool little feature. These things can pull to reports, okay? Baseline info, goal information, mastery, and generalization. So let's do a couple. Baseline, boom. So the system, right, knows from the graph, and you want it like that, you can kind of have some baseline information that can pull the reports. Mastery criteria, right? Boom. There's my mastery criteria. This stuff can pull to report. Generalization criteria, boom. That stuff can pull to reports. Where does that come from, right? It comes from your custom, and I say custom with emphasis, right? You can make your own stuff, and that's that question, right? Don't have a software tell you what to do. So this is an example of how I like to teach potentially, right? I want to start in baseline, okay? For this program, truck, car, book, right? Tacting. And if it's greater than something, I want to master it out. They know the skill. If it's less than something, I want it to go to intervention. While in intervention, I want these custom prompts, okay? And I'm going to go to generalization. I'm going to move back or forward, right? And eventually I'm going to go to maintenance, right? And I'm going to display on my data sheet every 5 days, display on my data sheet every 10 days, right? So this is a very quick overview. It's not a teaching session, but what I'm highlighting here is this is your criteria, your phases, right? Your prompts, okay? So much that you can say, this is my favorite prompt, right? And now that will be a prompt, right? So you shouldn't be limited, okay? Or some people do like a PP, right? Or an FP, right? You shouldn't be limited, okay? So I wanted to show you that. And I know there might be a question, but I want to show you one more thing, okay? I want to make back to that instructional notes, okay? So let's make one real quick. My teaching instructions, right? Place new goal here. So on my left side, I'm going to write an awesome goal. Okay, that's my awesome goal. In my awesome goal, I want to put my first awesome target. Okay, so this is target here. Okay, remember you want your individualized mastery criteria and prompt hierarchies. So you simply come on down. You can also pick your type of data. Okay. You can also pick your trials, right? You can also pick, how you want your graph to look. But what I want to highlight is this thing. The key here is that you can make whatever prompt hierarchy and phase, hierarchy that you want. Okay, so I'll just kind of do a little verbal one real quick. And I've saved mine. Okay, that's cool as well. It's all about time saving. Okay, so what I did there was I started with baseline, and it's going to go through my sequence all the way to maintenance. Okay, so that's how easy it is to get your custom stuff in the system. What we want to do is we want to teach users to show us how they teach, right? Show us how they master goals out, right? And teach them how to do it in the system. And the last thing before I take a question is, what is my awesome goal? What are the instructions, right? So again, you want to be able to put in all your stuff. So the previous question was, can you upload? Yes, you could. Could you copy and paste right here? Yes, you could. Or could you make it a little more formal, right? And use one of these little templates? Yes, you can. Okay. And this is
Greg, I answered this on chat, but I just wanted to make sure I answered it correctly. The question was, can you edit something, a document that you've uploaded? And my understanding is a PDF you probably can't edit. Is that correct? If it's a Word document or anything like that, can you edit that if it's uploaded?
Exactly. So the difference is, do you want to copy and paste from Word, which you can edit at any time, right? Or do you want to literally upload, right? So if you upload, it's like opening a file, right? In which case you can then make changes when you when you edit it, but then you have to re-upload, right? It's like that, you know. So I actually, and PDF, of course, you can't edit. So what I would recommend is literally from Word, copy and paste it in, make as many edits as you want. Okay, but yes, of course you can upload.
And I made a comment as well that I wanted to say, which is with medical records, you do want to not make sure not to retroactively edit PDFs. Like if you have a report and you have to edit something, instead you'd probably want to write an addendum just for the purposes of documentation and auditing purposes.
Yep.
So if you are doing any edits, just I possibly do it that way. One more question is, does CentralReach have a curriculum library to choose from, or do we need to write out all of our activities from scratch? And then a quick question came in about how do you make an addendum, and that would just be write another Word document explaining what changes you made and then upload that as a PDF. So addendum is just a fancy way of saying add another document that explains the changes you made.
Yeah. So no, so that's fine. Great answers there. And I will chat you a link to our marketplace. We do have some goal banks, the IGLR, the Vineland, the VB Map, and then we have other users that sell their curriculum. So a little bit of both, and I can definitely take questions at the end about that. Now I do want to hustle just because of time. We have some great reports to run, so I definitely want to just kind of hustle through now. So just give me a sec, and we will have some more time for questions. Great ones though. So basically, right, we just looked at this stuff, right? So very quickly, but you can put in your own teaching, your own targets, individualize, okay, of course. And if you think about it, right, so far, you know, if you're exploring, right, you should have thought about the whys, thought about the what's, right, why you're going electronic, thought about your goals, thought about what you need to electronic. You're going to pick a project manager, right? You're going to break, that's all, that seems like a lot, right? And you're going to pick a software, write your goals, then you're going to take data, right? We're at that step now. We're about to write a report, but that could be a long process. So when you think about that, go back to that timeline, right? Is it 1 month? Is it 2 months? Is it 3 months? Be very precise about your steps and your goals. But if you've already done that, great work, right? And you broke it up into manageable steps from all those things I just listed, okay? So now you get to the fruits of your labor, right? So now you've picked the software, you've put in your stuff, you have taken data, right? So documentation and reporting. You should be able to complete all these things in the system. You should be able to accomplish every form you need to. You should be able to put in your own forms if you like, place those in, or use the platforms templates that they offer. At the end of the day, each clinician should be able to log on, pick a student, and then pick the report and finish. Okay, no more Google Drive, no more words, right? You should be able to finish all these things in the system. Now here's just a sample of a couple, right? And then it's not the same report, but on the left, just a sample, right? You should be able to put your logo, pull in demographic information. You should be able to do an FBA report, right? Paired with the data collection. So take some data on your behaviors, write your report. And then on the right side, right, a page from a behavior plan. You should be able to store your behaviors, store their hypothesized function, right? Store their definition. And this is just something that we'll pull in a few minutes, is pull the definition to report, pull the intensity, pull the baseline data, pull the status. Those are all things you should think about when you're, think about what you need, and we can pull all those, okay? I think there's some questions.
Yeah, there's some questions. So the first one is in relation to the session notes for the tech. I think that they were trying to get a little bit more information about what the view looks like. And it might be beyond the scope of the webinar, which is fine, but I just wanted to circle back to that. And then there was one other question that came through.
Yeah, so I will be giving my email, and we can definitely go into CentralReach specifics, and then the views for sure. And we want to do that, kind of keeping it high level a little bit today, but we definitely can go into that, if there's time at the end, or just kind of one-on-one as well. Okay.
Okay.
Hopefully that's okay for today.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah. Another question was, when leadership goes in to edit treatment plans in CentralReach, is there a way to track edits when writing reports?
Awesome. So you can view history and you can see previous versions. We don't have a track changes feature. However, that is on our roadmap for this year, and it's going to be awesome. Okay, so I can't say a timeline, but there's going to be the whole report review process. Right now, what people do is they go in, they open up their file, and they pass it on to their supervisor, right? The supervisor opens it up, and they can highlight, and they can kind of bold, and they can change color, and then they use a task system. So basically, they might go in, they task the person and say, hey, I've uploaded your report. Here's my edits in green. Please change them and pass it back to me. So not official track changes, but that is on the roadmap.
Wonderful.
All right.
And
I'm
putting Greg's email in the chat box so that if you have user specific questions like a glitch you're running into or anything like that, then you can email him directly.
Cool. Awesome. So I'm going to fly through 2 slides, and we're going to run a report just because we're slow on, we're running out of time. All right. So on this slide right here, guys, obviously, but we want to include all this, and I'm going to show you how we include all this, right? Parent involvement, crisis plans, discharge, right? We want to, why is all this formatting, right? In the previous slide here, right? We have all this formatting and all these things here. Why is it important? Because whether we like it or not, insurance governs a little bit about what we present. So we need a system to track it and store it and present it in their way. Okay. So just kind of keep this in mind here. Okay. Now, how the system should work, right? And I'm going to show you all this. Diversified templates. It should save narrative information, goal information. Okay. And it should also save anything about domains, functions, baseline, mastery. It should store all those. Okay. And it should also have quantitative data about, all these things, up on the screen here. And the verdict is still out if insurances actually enjoy looking at our graphs, right? But we should still always include them, and we should have the options: cumulative graphs, linear graphs, combined target graphs, right? Data, baseline data, current data, averages, right? So this is just a sample here about what insurance may be looking at. I say may be looking for, rather. Okay. Now, I had to skip over a few things, just quickly because of time, but basically what we're going to do now is everything I've said could be stored. We're now going to pull it. Okay. And you're going to see that progress report, right, that they're giving probably, an hour and a half for, or no billable time with some new codes, right, or very minimal. Okay. You can see the time saving. And my biggest recommendation for those, right, that are on a platform and that don't have time to do much is really store everything possible. Everything possible you want to be able to save. So from the intake person putting in their demographics, okay, that's stored. From the ongoing, case management, putting in background information, family information, store that. Okay. From all the baseline and mastery criteria, store that. From crisis plans, store that. That all can go in your binder. And then when it comes progress report, it's literally the fastest thing possible. Okay. So let's do this. We are going to write a report and pull all this stuff. Okay. So again, all that information is really just kind of how to pick a software that fits your needs, how to individualize, and how to set it up. And obviously a lot to cover, and we bounced around a little bit, but here is kind of those fruits of your labor, right? So like I said in one of the slides, anyone can come in, if they have permission, of course, find their individual, decide what they're going to do. Okay, they're going to write a note today. They're going to write a note today. It's progress report time, right? Everything's in the system, no hunting down. Okay, I'm Matt. I'm doing a report for Matt. What report? I am doing an insurance initial assessment, or in this case, I'm just going to kind of treat it as a progress report. Okay, what I'm going to do is watch my hard work. Every time I went out for a supervision, things were updated. Every time I learned a little bit of the family information, things were updated. Every time they changed schools, things were updated, right? So here, the fruits of my labor. Okay? So page 1, telephone is in here, date of birth is in here, age, address, right? Benefit information, additional contacts are saved, right? Diagnosis is saved, right? Diagnosing physician, date of diagnosis, everything possible, right? Where did this stuff come from? We stored it. We stored it in the learning tree. We stored it in a place called basics. We stored it in a place called metadata, right? And now it pulls. Okay, next page. That's just additional, right? This is just kind of a sample that I have here. Okay.
And we're just over time, so if you want to maybe have some final thoughts here.
Okay, yikes. I know. Okay, let me do some final thoughts because this was the grand finale, but I know. So, all right, so what you should do, lastly, when you're going to come in, and you're going to be able to pick your goals that you've taken all this data. Okay. You can come in, pick your stuff, right? Pick your date range, right? So it's progress report time. There's my date range. I've picked some stuff. Boom. What it's going to do is it's going to populate everything you need it to. Okay. So for example, right? It can populate the status, the mastery, the goal summary. I didn't have a source. Insurances are asking for that a lot, but it will populate all this stuff, right? This one has a source, and you just kind of watch these things fly, right? So you notice your targets, your baseline, your current score, etc. Okay, and there's a lot other things this report can do, like crisis plan and discharge, but we are out of time. Okay, so
thank you so much, Greg. That was fantastic. In the chat box, I did include the survey to fill out to get your 1 CEU, and you'll also receive that via email as well. So thank you all for joining us, and Greg, that was fantastic. I learned a lot, and I really appreciate your time today.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm a long talker. Sorry. Hopefully it was helpful, a good mix of seeing a tool and learning how to go electronic.